Hey there, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us, and welcome to Firing Range, a podcast to talk about all things D2 weapons, abilities, loadouts, the sandbox at large, and the proud podcast fully representing Team Dino. Where you at? Team Dino in the chat.
That's right.
Team Dino.
Yes.
All the way.
Team Dino.
Only one team.
There's only one team. Haven't heard from Cammy.
No, I have no say in this fight. I like them both, but I'm picking a monster just because it's really easy to make thumbnails with it.
Fair.
Dude, but Triceralock and
The
Velocihunter, it's...
Yeah, the Velociraptor boots.
Yeah.
How can you not want those?
The hunters got off great. They don't
I
care.
might
You
go
get
for
the
Team
raptor
Dino
boots
just
or
to see
like
if
what,
people take off
Godzilla?
Stompies. Like that might be kind of cool.
Cool guy. I'm
Right.
trying to break up my my inner Dwight Schrute here. We were like, oh, Triceralock though. I'm like, yeah, that's great. You know what's even better than Triceratops though? Every other dinosaur to have ever existed ever, or whatever Dwight says. I don't think cool guys watch The Office, but
No.
no, that's such a shame. Remember that at home when you're voting on favorite podcast member. I'm sorry. We haven't talked in a while, guys. It's been a while. It's been a couple of weeks since we've been here. We've been trying to get a handle on all the new content, and then I think last week we had maybe a scheduling conflict or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. And we're all here now, and there's like, I was looking over everything we needed to talk about. I was like, we haven't even covered the State of the Game article, the Joe Garoth diaries. You know what I mean? We have to talk about that. We got to talk about everything. So I'm gonna try to move relatively quickly. But if there's anything y'all want to fall down the rabbit hole on, you just do it, and I'll watch the clock. But starting off, Dead Man's Tale Catalyst, because we've talked thoroughly about the Dead Man's Tale when it came out. I thought it was a great mission, great everything. We were already in love with the gun, and I've been dying to talk to Merc about how he feels about the gun with the catalyst now. So talk to me, buddy.
It is everything that I was hoping that it would be. It is what the Halo Reach should have been or the Halo Reach DMR should have been, with
Sure.
no bloom and just variable rate of fire when you're ADS or when you're hip firing. It is excellent. I have tried to go back to my other loadouts and I can't. I've gotten so used to just being able to hip fire with accuracy that it's going to be really hard for me to use like any other gun now. I like it so incredibly much. And yeah, it's, I mean, if you guys have, if anybody has run into me, because I've gotten a couple messages from it. Someone actually messaged me the other day and said, as soon as I saw your name, I knew I was going to hear the DMT. And sure enough, it's just like, it's been incredible. I used nothing but it in Iron Banner the entire time. I've got a Charge with Light build now that makes it even easier to two-tap people. I mean, I'm rocking, you know, double scout targetings, double scout unflinching, scout reloader. Like,
God.
my entire build is now just like DMT centric.
I feel like that meme right now of like the guy walking down the street, like looking over his shoulder and doing the, ooh, yeah, like, are you like leaving Bastion behind?
Yes, for now.
Wow.
I don't know
For
that I
now,
will
okay.
leave Bastion behind forever, but you know, I had to post something about Bastion, rile up the sweats the other day on Twitter. You know, I gotta prod the bear a little bit, but yeah, it is 100% that meme of me looking at DMT and Bastion being like upset in the background as it just sits in dusty in my inventory.
I've been rocking that gun a lot too. Super fun. I don't know if you guys have all been, like, I kind of rode it really hard during that. I guess you could call it like the honeymoon stage. You get like a new toy and you're like, oh yeah, let's go ham with it, you know? Gone back to 120 RPMs because, of course. But like, if I'm playing for fun, I'm like waiting for the next Iron Banner to come out so I can whip out the old DMT again. It's like my fun weapon. You know what I mean? I feel like everyone has like a try hard loadout and maybe like a couple of goof around loadouts, but whatever.
Yeah.
Another thing, unless anyone wants to talk about the DMT more, but another thing that has happened since we were all at the table, Trials is gone, and we don't know when it's coming back, and I'm like torn
I
on
feel
it.
like we've been here before.
Sounds oddly familiar, doesn't it, Drew?
Out of all the reasons for them to have disabled Trials, though, I think this is probably the funniest of the reasons that they've disabled Trials.
Really
I mean, the
is.
Hawkeye method is pretty damn clever and pretty damn.
Well, let's
Yeah.
recap the Hawkeye method for the viewers.
Sure.
So
yeah.
you're using an emblem to signify that you are willing to throw the match by typing in Steam a random dice roll. Whoever has the higher dice roll wins. A team changes character to preserve their card, get the win, other team backs out. Repeat.
Yeah, I had heard on the surface of that tactic and was like, I didn't really understand it, and like I had to watch a video of somebody talking about it and kind of like look at a diagram, and I was like, oh, I totally get it. I'm partly horrified because, like, you know, because of the hockey crap, Trials has gone away, which is mildly annoying. Not tremendously, but only mildly annoying. But you kind of got to give people credit. These are like Lex Luthor level, like, criminal masterminds. It reminds me of like organized crime, like coming together
Yeah.
to try and pull off this crap.
I feel like it's almost commendable though, because
Yeah.
like in this weird way, because the organization, the signaling with the hockey emblem,
Yeah.
and, like, ultimately I feel like it really shows us what, you know, some of the community is willing to like organize for the sake of, I mean.
But on the flip side, I was talking to Cool Guy a few days ago, and he said, wait, where is this complicated emblem system for Gambit?
The bottom dollar, brother. It's a very intricate system, you know, and it started because they allowed join backs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Yep.
So, like, if you get kicked, you can join back, right?
Right.
But like the issue with that, and we came across it, it's like, say you get kicked when it's 4-3 or 3-3, like if you're able to get back in the game, like, and they've already scored like 2 rounds or whatever, like it counts as a double loss. Like it's a flawed system that they have because it kicks you, gives you a loss. If you come back and try to help your team, but they're already down 2, you lose again. So like the card's done.
Yeah.
It's a bad system.
Yeah, true. One of the many, we'll file that under the very large folder that we have on Trials being not perfect. But yeah, I was kind of thinking that they would just be like, oh, well, the entire hockey thing is literally dependent on the ability for you to rejoin your fire team, which was a feature that they added only kind of recently, right? I just figured that they would go back in time and just kind of like unflip whatever switch they did to do that. Like, let's just temporarily disable that while we figure out how to change it. Then again, I'm not a developer. I don't know how long. I'm sure it is much more complicated than flipping a switch, but I thought they would just kind of like, let's turn that off and have Trials the way it was until we figure out a long-term fix. But no, Trials has been gone for a full week, and you could be listening to this podcast at home over the weekend, and it could be 2 weekends of no Trials, which not the worst thing in the world, but
I actually think the community is happier for it. Like
I think so too.
there's like
A
weird
little
other
bit, yeah.
salt, like, you know, last week the drama was like teabagging Gambit or whatever the fuck it was, but like, you know, there's like a lot less salt on the weekends when Trials isn't around. At least
Yeah.
that's me Twitter goes. So it's like,
This
you know,
is-
maybe this isn't the worst thing ever.
this is a really, really old reference, but there's a very old episode of The Simpsons where I think something happens to Itchy and Scratchy. Like, they get kind of attacked by the moms of America who want less violent cartoons, and they completely butcher Itchy and Scratchy, and the kids don't want to watch the Krusty show anymore, so they all kind of go outside, and it's like a classical music starts playing, and they're like rubbing their eyes to the sunlight, and like they're all playing outdoors. It's like, I kind of felt that way with Trials Gone this weekend. I was like, I could do other things.
Yeah.
So something that like I've been thinking about, man, and since it's offline, right? So they like, okay, due to an unforeseen thing, we've, you know, Trials is shut down, and to show you that we mean business, the hockey emblem is also locked out. Now it's good. But to me, like, it would be a perfect opportunity to try something. Like, maybe within this patch, where they bring Trials back online, make 1.5 minute rounds, make 1:15 rounds. Like, it wouldn't be too crazy to try for a weekend or 2. Or maybe there's something down the line that they do have planned that they can sneak in here to make the overall game mode better until they get the full patch in. You know what I'm saying?
On that same idea, I don't think it was the hockey thing alone that made them pull the plug on Trials. That could have been the final straw. I don't even think it's the
It might
main
have been.
contributing factor.
It might have been. Yeah.
Because, to be honest, I don't think the system works in North America. I think it's commendable that on the other side of the world, a different culture trusts each other enough on that. But in NA, you're going to roll the dice, and if you lose, you're just going to play to win, and then just send that team back to reset.
It is true. Totally weird thing, and I've heard a lot of different opinions on the Hake system in general, the vanishing of trials, when it'll come back. If you have any thoughts on any of that, we would just love to hear it. Please let us know on Twitter. But in the meantime, believe it or not, we have even more large things to talk about. So we're gonna go right on to the Road to the Witch Queen article, which by now is not new news, but it's still huge, and like we want to talk about it. And I'm sure your communities on Twitch, on YouTube have been as active in talking about it as mine have, like, because there's a lot to go over. So we're gonna kind of go over the major parts. I'm not gonna cover super minor things in the interest of time, like transmog. That's all well and good, but you know, we'll leave that to DCPOG. So first on our docket is the depth of sunsetting, which I don't know how y'all reacted to that. pretty much that hand gesture.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was big news. I was trying to read the Road to the Witch Queen live on Twitch when it dropped, and people had already skimmed the whole thing, and like they were just exploding up my Twitch chat with like sunsetting gone, and like I was like trembling, like I couldn't, like I was freaking out, like I wanted to read the whole thing, but I wasn't at the sunsetting part yet. But I'll read the direct quote here from Bungie if you, for whatever reason, have not heard this at all. We've made the decision that any weapon or armor that can currently be infused to max power will continue to be able to reach max power permanently. Starting in Season 14, which is in May, by the way, we won't be capping the infusion of any weapon or armor that have not already reached the cap as the start of Season 13. That means you'll be able to take your trusty, your falling guillotine, all the high stat armor you've earned over the year to take on the raid in the Witch Queen. What do you guys think about that?
I want to play the game again.
Good call.
The whole game.
Yeah.
Like old raids, old activities, everything. It all matters again.
Dungeons.
They're on the table. Yeah.
I'm especially happy that we're not going to see one of my biggest fears in terms of PvP, because I guess this is a sandbox and PvP oriented podcast in a way. One of my biggest fears was that we were going to get to a point where, okay, the end game sandbox is really healthy. Like, we've dialed back the power creep. That seemed like an attempt or theme of sunsetting, was trying to dial that back a little bit, as we've seen with some weapons. We get to a point where, let's say, Trial Sandbox is super healthy, but then like has this massive disparity with quick play, which is still like a crap show of like Fellwinters and like Mindbenders and all like the past years of the most broken thing. Mountaintop, like, you know what I mean? Like it's like imagine there's like there's still there's a small disparity now, but it's pretty tolerable. It's like it's whatever. You know, you have your occasional mountaintop and whatnot, but I feel like if we kept going, there's the potential where, like, think of like Fellwinters was supposed to be sunset next season, right? Next season.
This was the last proposed season of Fellwinter. Yeah. In May, it would have died.
And then we would have gotten this like big gap between the end game sandbox and the quick play sandbox, and I feel like that would feel really bad.
I think that would have been one of the ugliest seasons of PvP, because you have these people who got the quick draw Astral Horizon uncontested by everyone else.
Yep.
Yeah. It's one of those things where, like, yeah, I'm glad that the changes have been reversed, because I think it makes the game much more playable and enjoyable. Like Cammy said, like, I want to play the game again. There's like a really small part of me kind of wanted to see PvP in Season 14 without that Fellwinter. Just kind of wanted to see.
They said that they're gonna nerf shop package.
I know, but like they're gonna do a little tweakage, I'm sure. But like,
and remove
little curious.
Yeah, we've noticed the trends that they're taking away certain things from certain weapons.
If I had to guess, they're taking away quick draw if they already removed it on the Astral. That tells me some decision changed along the way, though.
But now we're in this weird situation that you bring that up, because now that certain weapons aren't getting chopped on the chopping block anymore, my old Astral Horizon, I feel, is more valuable than the new generation of Astral Horizons, which can't, because they can't roll quick draw anymore.
They're probably going to retroactively go back and take the quick off.
They will probably do stuff like that.
Needs to happen, honestly.
yeah, got to keep an even playing field to a degree in terms
Yeah, I
of
want
what you
someone who
can and
starts
can't
Destiny
acquire.
this week to be at strength parity with everyone else.
There you go.
And that's what I like the most about Fellwinters and PvP, though. It brought some consistency to the shotgun fights, whereas previously someone could have a rifled barrel and another person wouldn't. And then on top of just being more inconsistent in general without shot package.
Yeah, we want
going to lightweights with quick draw.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. But that'd be great. I'd much rather see CQC, shotguns out there with quick draw and give people the actual, like, okay, you're not going to be able to map quite as far as Fellwinters, but you have quick draw, which you don't get on Fellwinters, you don't get on Astral Horizon anymore. So make a trade-off. Like, choose absolute map distance with a shotgun, or choose way better handling and way better ready speed, and shave 2 meters off of it, right? Like, I feel like that's a fine trade-off. I'd like to see that.
These are questions that Bungie now really needs to think about, because they had sunsetting as their kind of safety net, where if they were able to introduce a weapon that was like, oh my god, it's cracked, like Fellwinter, they could fall back on that net of being like, don't worry, boys. On this date on the clock, it's going to bed. It's going to bed forever. No, now they have to really make sure that there's nothing too wild that will go into like mountaintop territory. They got to really kind of fine tune the things, and I'm tipping my imaginary cap to them for doing that, because I think it was the right call to roll back sunsetting. I think it's going to be great for the game going forward, but definitely a challenge for Bungie.
I had just one thing. I think that they realized that they were still having to individually affect stuff anyways, right? Like, I think they realized that sunsetting didn't do what potentially they thought it was going to do, where they would say, okay, if we sunset stuff, we don't have to do individual tuning passes. Well, they still had to do individual tuning passes, number one. But number two, the thing that they needed to do and that they ended up doing was they added new perks that could only roll on new guns. And that by itself migrates people like to the next generation of guns. Like, it doesn't do it as hard as sunsetting does, but when you add perks like Frenzy to new guns and it can only roll on a certain thing, right? You can't get it on an old thing. Well, then people will migrate to those new things, So it's not going to be 100% migration, but it will be a majority migration, which I think is what we're seeing. So I think what probably happened is they saw that the acceptance of the new perks was really high, because they're great perks. Like, the last couple of seasons, the perk team has done a fantastic job of adding new perks. Killing Wind obviously came in before that too. So it's like, I think they saw that, like, oh wow, players are actually using a lot of new weapons anyways, and we're still having to go back and individually tune Fellwinters, and we still had to go back and individually tune Mountaintops. So like, clearly it didn't end up,
right.
Clearly it didn't actually save us anything. It just upset all the players.
I want to say real quick before we kind of transition here. I'm actually very happy to see that they actually listened to a lot of feedback concerning sunsetting. I think me, Cam, a lot of people here, we're pretty outspoken of some concerns with it, and it's really nice to see Bungie listen to that and make like reverse a pretty monumental change. So, yeah.
Kudos.
Agreed, definitely. We can move on to the changes they mentioned about the power grind, and I know that's kind of less of our department, but still worth at least bringing up for a quick mention. Starting in Season 14, which again, May, we will only be raising the power cap by 10 for each non-expansion season. That means if you reach the maximum power in Season 13, when Season 14 rolls around, you will be directly in the 10-point pinnacle band of the power pursuit.
Perfect.
Shaking your head there, Merc. Are you thinking that there's maybe a little give and take on that one? What do you think?
I mean, I didn't think this most recent season, the past, it's been bad. I didn't think the power climb was super brutal. I mean, I think it took, without me trying to power climb, it took me like less than 2 weeks to get up to an area where I was like in the pinnacle band, right? So, I think that probably overall it might just end up being better for players, because I don't think that people find the power grind to be fun anymore. I don't think it's been fun for like 7 seasons. So, I'm sure there are people out there that are happy that it's just gone entirely and it's not even something you have to deal with anymore. But at the same time, like, I may be alone here. I didn't think the power grind was too bad this season, and it's kind of fun in like week 1 to raid boss people in trials, if trials ever comes back, or like,
See, I don't like that.
So I thought for 1 week, like if it was the entire season of dealing with people 50 light over you, it'd be frustrating. But like the very first week of trials only, having some raid bosses in there, like, you know, it's kind of, I felt like it kind of gave No Lifers something to try for, but it only gave them 1 week to like rub it in other people's faces, and then everyone else was on pair.
Yeah, I'm like half with you on that one.
Yeah.
It doesn't solve the pain point for me. The easy part was getting to the pinnacle or the power cap or whatever. It only
Fuck
takes
yeah.
a couple hours of doing what you already do to hit that 1300, and then the last 10, you have to just get lucky with pinnacle drops, which sucks. If we had more control over that, I'd be okay with that, but we don't. You can be stuck without max light for weeks because you don't get a chess piece.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. I agree with you, Merc. Like, it's been like the most relaxed 50 points this season as far as leveling up. Like, the issue always is new content comes out. Maybe you play on the weekends, maybe a couple hours a week. And it's like my wife. It's the reason why she doesn't play Destiny, dude. Like, but by the time she wants to like sit down, I'm like, oh well, you have to do this plus 50 levels, plus that, plus that. So with this, like, yeah, you know, you can get on Destiny now. It's really easy to level up this season. Well, when the next season starts, you can jump into what everybody's doing. You don't have to go back and do, you know, whatever Gambit.
Yeah, a couple hours of Gambit.
Gambit!
Yeah, you don't have to. It's like
More than a couple hours this week with that damn challenge. 5 main levels or whatever.
Oh,
that you
good
can get
lord.
at.
Yeah, I saw that. What the heck was what was that about?
so I'm cool with it. You know, less of the just number going up and more playing.
Yeah. If they can pull it off, great. I mean, the challenge there would be to make sure that with season 14, that the content is like immediately engaging. You know what I mean? Because if you jump in and there's stuff to do, great, go do it. But like if there's kind of nothing to do, you're like, oh well, normally I'd be power grinding right now, but I'm not doing that right now.
There are some
To our
players that
opponents.
just want to see that number go up, but I think Bungie's
True.
doing a really good job with promoting like double Nightfall drop rewards to get people into the game. I think that's much healthier than arbitrary number go up. It's something I can tangibly use, and that makes the game more enjoyable, like Palindrome.
Yeah. At the risk of bogarting the conversation, like one of the reasons why I liked having like these light levels is because you can over level difficult content at a certain point and then it becomes like pretty easy, right? Like people who are pretty casual can over level the old raids and then go back to the old raids and it's like way easier. And my concern is that if they start removing light level from the game, that they eventually just do away with it entirely, because when it comes down to it, like it is pretty much just an arbitrary number, right? For dedicated players it is. But for other people, for people who aren't that good, raising their light to over level something actually makes that content a lot easier. And right now we don't have selectable difficulty on a ton of activities, but they did say that they're going to bring in selectable difficulty raids, which is great. We now have selectable difficulty lost sectors. Obviously we've had nightfalls for a while. Like in D1 we had selectable difficulty on all PvE content, and it's taken a while for that to start filtering back into the game. But you know, if you give us the ability to do things easier, do things harder, at some point in time we may be in a world where light level, like, you know, really is just kind of a meaningless number sitting next to your name.
I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
Keep on keeping on.
I think it'll keep more people in the game, more accessibly, and I think that's a good thing. As much as for us, the power level grind's not exactly difficult. It's also because a lot of us play this game both incredibly, like a lot, but incredibly efficiently, and not everyone. A lot of people don't know how to level as efficiently as we do. So it's like, I can imagine it takes a lot longer for them, especially if you don't know. So I think this will allow people to kind of invest their time and carry that, you know, through season over season, and it'll feel less like chores for a lot of people and more like just wanting to play the game and play some new content. The only thing that I see that kind of like makes me a little sad about this is like, I think I look forward to the comp run, you know, playing survival and leveling up to 5500 every season, because it's like such an amazing way to get like powerful rewards, and I just enjoy it. I think that's a big incentive to play the survival playlist.
It's
And with
enjoyable,
this
man.
kind of-
It's de-rust opportunity.
yeah, it's always fun for me every season, and I'm probably still gonna do it just because it's something to do. However, taking that incentive away is just, or you know, having the power cap, you know, not be as necessary, I should say, takes a little bit of incentive away from survival, and I'm just so hoping for maybe some sort of a refresh to that playlist or something, because it's just a little less valued now.
Actual rank-based matchmaking would do wonders for
Whoa.
the ranked playlist. I know that's
Calm down there,
revolutionary.
Merc.
Don't know any game that's ever done that before, but you know that would probably be pretty fun.
Or what about tiered? Bronze, silver, diamond.
I
Or
preferred
legend.
like True Skill just because I thought True Skill was fun and easy, but I mean Reach had tiers and it seemed to work fine. So start.
I know
that.
we're
Oh,
going,
oh,
like,
Merc.
way off
There
topic,
are
guys.
plenty. There are plenty of
They're gonna cut the
tiers
feed.
in Destiny, Merc.
I
Different
know this is going like way off
type.
topic, but like I'm at the point where ranking doesn't matter to me, and I just give us great game modes. I'm gonna go on that topic again.
Showdown.
Great game modes. This
You
is
heard him.
like fan service for the PvP player that wants a little bit more of an organized setting.
Well, we're
So-
kind of already strolling down this road. I'm just gonna keep going. On the road of PvP changes, which they detailed more of in the Jogaroth diaries. Something I think that we were all probably happy to read. I don't even need to spend more than 5 minutes on this. The death of 3-peaking, which is something that they wrote very extensively on. I'll just
There's
read
a-
the highlighted paragraph.
Room
First
their
in
hands
season
up.
15. In season 15, which unfortunately is not coming in May. So what is that? Like late summer? Is that
June, July, August.
yeah, okay.
If we're still doing normal season links, which
Right.
I think we are.
Provided we are. Season 15, Bungie will be addressing 3-peaking in Trials and in Comp. In those two modes, emotes will be disabled, and players will be unable to pull out any third-person weapon that does not have ammo. Kind of big. I know it's mildly painful that we have to deal with another full season of what we currently have, because I know how much the people at this table have talked about how irritating 3-peaking
Infuriating.
can
Yes.
be. It's very infuriating. It used to, way back when, it didn't bother me as much, but like the changes to the meta over time and like the slowing, Trials has never felt so slow to me, and like with all the factors, and 3-peaking is just a huge part of that pie. I can't imagine anyone has anything here to say other than wanting to do a backflip. Anything? Drew, you got something?
I'm really happy about this, and I think I'm over the moon. I'm ecstatic about it. I think it's awesome. I'm with you guys. The next discussion that needs to happen is, what about 3-peaking abilities, right? And
Shatter Dive.
I think I think a lot of them right now do require you to give up some sort of something, and I'm of the opinion that it's still not as powerful as the sword. You're not just this unlimited mobility, just on switch, I'm in third person, and just, complete control over everything. So I do still think like the fact that you have to initiate something, lock yourself out of something, give up something, which many of these abilities make you do to get into third person, is better than what we have and better than this. But yeah, like Cool Guy, like you just said, I think there are a few abilities that, I'm hoping don't fly under the radar and maybe get tweaked for this. Shadow Dive being one of them. That doesn't have a cooldown and maybe perhaps should have some sort of a cooldown, if not for itself, for this.
They
Phoenix
said they are
Dive.
taking away DR though.
Yeah, I mean, but still, like you can think about this without a cooldown, right? In the context of third person, you can already hang yourself on the wall, which does lock you there, mind
Mhm.
you, which
Yep.
is less favorable. But let's say you just want to keep doing it over and over and over again.
Well,
Right,
with
like-
the sword or 3-peaking, like we talked about the other day, Cam, like you can use a dust field for 3-peakers. Like no, the 3-peakers are using dust fields against you. So it's much
Yeah, with the
easier.
sword hilt, they're able to walk around and throw abilities. We played teams that only shatter dive with their
Yeah.
hilt out.
Yeah,
Fallout,
so-
Phoenix Dive mains.
I definitely think it's still better, right? Like we have the agency to still push someone in the shadow dive animation or stuck in it or whatever. Like,
Significantly better, Drew.
It's still significantly better. I just think that some abilities, like shadow dive, maybe Phoenix Dive, I don't know what other ones
Well,
might
I mean,
need
You can also get on
a
some structure
cooldown because of
with,
this.
with a rift and with a shield and like not throw
Right.
it out but still go third. I think that needs to
Yeah,
go
if you like
back
slide
too.
into a wall. it won't
Yeah,
throw.
you can like break the
Is that ca-
animation.
like, I mean,
It's
well,
not
I
consistent
don't know how
enough.
consistent.
Yeah,
that
I
is,
don't.
though,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shadow dive is like I can sit there and just
Easy. You can just
Shatter
do it over and
dive,
over and
It's
over.
gonna need a tweak because I use
Yeah,
it just
it
for
will.
jump shotting, and it's a third person every time I put a shot in, and that adds up.
And you bring up a good point because, I mean, well, hopefully by season 15, we won't have such supreme Revenant PvP domination, which is like wild. But definitely a good thing to bring up, Drew. It's a really good point. I think
No,
that
I agree with you.
yeah, if you're out there and you agree, we were able to, you know, to maybe not twist Bungie's arm, but, you know, we were able to share our feedback on 3-peaking. And if you feel the same way, you should do that, but you should do so the right way. You know exactly what I mean with that. Tell Bungie how you feel about additional 3-peaking tweaking, but for the love of God, don't be a dick. Nobody wants that. Moving on. Bungie is talking about the tweaks to Stasis in Season 13 and 14. And I'll just quickly go down the list. You can take any of these and tell me how you feel. Behemoth Titan, decreased super damage reduction, increased super energy cost when performing light attacks, remove freeze AoE on a super pop, reduce traveling efficiency of Shiver Strike when slowed. Revenant Hunter, decreased withering blade damage, aka shuriken, and tracking, decreased low stacks applied to targets, removed shatter dive damage reduction. Shadebinder, fixed a bug where ice flare bolts wouldn't track towards targets immediately on creation, fix a bug where Shadebinder super projectiles were not tracking until a certain distance traveled. In general, decreased crystal shatter damage. Any specific thoughts on any of those changes?
Well, time for Behemoth.
It's all out of hand.
It's all out of hand. Yep.
It's all out of hand.
Obvious changes that sound great.
Yeah. Any of those changes that you are more excited about than any other?
I think that the Shadebinder is going to be indirectly buffed by.
100%.
It will be, yeah,
Oh
for
yeah,
sure.
I'm rocking Shadebinder right now. Super strong.
You know, Cammy, I actually am going to do. It's very difficult to juggle back and forth between the outline of the show. Believe it or not, we actually do have an outline for this show, and the community questions. But I'm just going to jump ahead because someone actually had a question and it's relevant to what just came up. So I figured let's just take like 2 minutes to talk
Okay,
about
yeah,
it.
let's do it. Cool. Let's do it.
Here's a question from William H on Twitter. In a recent video, Cammy mentioned that smart players play Shadebinder, and since he said he wants to learn the subclass, could he explain the rationale?
Yeah, okay, so you might hear a streamer say something like, oh man, I keep getting solo supered. Well, there's a way to play with Shadebinder to just knock out most of that. I've played PvP sessions without popping a super and without dying a super for multiple hours. Think about that. As a streamer, as like, you know, public enemy #1 in the lobby, I'm not getting super killed. So
Yeah,
Shadebinder has a
You're not
lot
getting
of
you're not
kit
getting
to
super
combat that.
killed. Okay, you're not getting super killed due to the kit that Shadebinder has and
Correct.
how you're.
The freeze, the damage boost, the snipe, the turret, the glacier nade DR, all of it. It adds
You were
up.
using the turret.
Mm-hmm.
That's so interesting. Were you
Not
getting it to
actually
were you
around
getting
you.
to consistently work for you?
Yes.
That's
In
awesome.
control, I throw it
That's
back
very
into my
good.
spawn, and when we get a team wipe, you start seeing the turret hitting people off spawn.
Oh my god, that is
And then
really
in Trials
funny.
situation, it's when you get a body down, you throw the turret on the body, so that a barricade can't get them up or something.
Or Cam, what we were doing as well, like you would I would tell you when I'm ready to like break in with the teleport or backrest, and then you would throw it down, and then once it makes them turn, and then I teleport in, and then it's just chaos. It's fun
And
coordination like that
It takes
too.
some damage too to take that little thing out, man.
And you can do some
The
airstrikes
little turret,
with that
yeah.
turret, get it in some weird angles. I was playing Wormhaven the other day, I put it on the roof.
What?
Funny.
Yeah, I
I
mean-
really want to see that.
The Shadebinder kit is pure freeze, man. It's the best freeze in the game. I mean, for whatever reason, they didn't give it any slow, which, you know, I'm cool with. I mean, there needs to be less slow. But everything it does, I'm pretty sure you've done it too, Cam. Like, you can just kind of wait, pop the rift as the super's coming at you, freeze them.
Yup, I took off ice flare
Hedron's
bolts
down.
so that I could have both the turret and the freeze rift. Fighting behemoths and whatnot, the rift is super strong.
Yeah.
You almost want to
It's
run
very
towards
good,
them
yeah.
as they're going to RT attack you, and you'll catch them in the freeze every time. And because it's a long freeze, you have enough time to line up the snipe.
Good call. Thank you for
Underrated.
diving into that. Merc, any jumping for joy at any of those particular changes that I did mention?
I mean, I said it earlier, but Behemoth, I absolutely despise, supers in their current state, and the Behemoth is the worst example of all of those supers. A roaming super that lasts forever, that has insane damage resistance, it's almost impossible to kill. I mean,
With extra from chains.
yeah, and it's like,
Woof, yeah.
And at this point, because everybody's figured the movement out now, which they hadn't at the beginning of the season, you can't even really run away from it, right? Like, your best bet is to, like, hopefully float high enough if you can that you can just get away from them. But, like today, I ran full speed for like 25 seconds in a hunter, and a guy popped a super, chased me all the way across the map and killed me, and then I respawned and killed me again, and I was like, you've got to be fucking kidding, dude. Like, this is insane. Like, my rage at the Behemoth super is like off the charts in terms of how much I despise playing against it.
It's very annoying.
And I said this earlier, but like, I'm a Revenant hunter, and I'm annoyed with like Revenant hunters, right? Like, I appreciate the Stasis stuff for what it did and for how it changed the game, but it's sat as an outlier for a little bit too long at this point in time, and it's like,
they're keeping an eye on it,
Yeah, it's like, I'm ready for this stuff to come down. I'm ready for more variety to pop back into the Crucible. I'm ready for weapons to kind of take, their place at the forefront again. Like, this was fun this was fun for a season. I enjoyed the change. And now it's time for another change. This is a good start, but honestly, like, correct me if I'm wrong, unless these changes are like, a huge chopping, like we're chopping Behemoth damage resistance down to -10, you actually take like bonus damage when you pop it. Like, this stuff still sounds like it's going to be super strong.
So, but I mean, even small changes are meta altering. Like, I mean, Shatter Dive got hit. Shatter Dive's still really good.
It's not as
it's still really good, but I mean.
It's a much better defensive.
But Duskfield's the meta now
than it was
before.
Right. It is still very good.
And they didn't talk about changing Duskfield. Good lord, the suck, dude.
The suck. There's too much. Too much suck.
Glacier Nade's still one of my favorites, just because of the getting above angles, kind of like a top tree dawn. I've been using Glacier's different now that Shatter Dive is a little nerfed.
Now that Shatter Dive is nerfed, I'm using Glaciers the way I feel like they were actually meant to be used, which is I'm setting up cover. Yeah, I'm setting up cover. I'm blocking off angles, right? Forcing people, because you can shatter your own, crystals really easily, but it takes a lot more for an enemy to shatter them if they're trying to shoot them. So you can block off a doorway, and they either have to stand there and wail on it for a little bit, or they got to find another way to go around it, or they slide through it if they're a Titan, because Titans are awful. But like, one of the things that I really like doing now is when someone gets hurt and they duck behind cover, I throw the grenade behind them, and then I shoot the grenade and shatter it and kill the person who's hiding behind cover, right?
Makes sense.
Like, I'm really enjoying Glacier Grenades, and I'm still using Shatter Dive mostly because I'm a stat whore, and like, I get the double stat bonuses from the Shatter Dive build, and I don't really want to get rid of those, so I'm still using it, but I don't clear rooms with Shatter Dive anymore. Someone rushes me and I throw the grenade straight down and shatter immediately to, like, force people back and stop people from pushing me. But I feel like that's the way it's meant to be played. I don't feel like it's particularly strong. Some people will say, well, it still kills supers. And, my argument is and will always be like, yeah, but more stuff should kill supers. Like, supers shouldn't be invincible win buttons that last for 30 seconds. So,
Go down the Glacier, get a 30 whatever percent damage reduction. No big deal. Big deal.
No, what Merc said about breaking your own crystal is totally valid. It's like magical hats from Yu-Gi-Oh! They don't know.
Yeah, nobody knows what to do when a crystal gets thrown behind them and they're in cover, right? Like, usually they would like try to retreat, but they can't. The crystal's behind them, but they also can't push because they're behind cover because they're trying to recover. So people freeze even though they're not actually frozen. They just freeze and they just sit there, and of course the crystal shatter damage then kills them when they're doing it. So it's like people don't understand what to do when they can't run in a straight line forward or run in a straight line backwards. It's like all of their options are gone. The Felwinter's just hanging there useless in their hands, and
Yeah, exactly. I was about to make that joke. They're like, what do I do with this? Look at the primary. I guess I lost.
It's like talking to a magic 8-ball. What do we do, Magic Felwinter? Is shaking. It's like, try again later.
These slides 4 times straight. It's gotta know what to do.
So kind of the flip side of that coin, which is tweaking Stasis, they also want to focus on changing light subclasses. They wrote that following the Stasis tuning in season 15, though, so we're gonna have to wait a little bit for that. We will also focus on light subclasses and release a set of targeted buffs to our most underutilized specializations. The goal of all of these changes is to keep Stasis feeling great in PvE and to bring its representation in PvP more in line with our light-based abilities. That's going to take a lot of work, I would think.
A lot of buffs to catch up to Stasis.
Well,
Yeah,
I
depending on
think
what tree
that-
you're looking at.
I think that a good combination in buffs to other classes that maybe need some love, but some nerfs to a lot of nerfs to Stasis. I love Stasis. I mean, a lot more than the average person. And I love how it changes the game like Merc. I still love the idea and a lot of things that it lets you do. Movement is off the charts in this game to the point where some maps don't even play well because it's so ridiculously fast. And Stasis allows you to kind of slow someone down and punish them for overcommitting and making a rather silly play of flying forward at you. And I love that. I like, we were just kind of touching on the glacier nades. I think they have a ridiculously high skill ceiling in terms of utility, making platforms, defending yourself, shatter dive, which I still use. It's awesome, but it's clear that these things, especially things like the slow effect, are incredibly strong. Like just so far above the rest. Again, I love the idea of what it tries to achieve and does very effectively, but it's too much reward for very little risk almost. We look at the shurikens, I'm sure we're all familiar with that.
Wait, what?
Banking off of every wall and slowing you for 2 to 4 seconds depending on what aspects or what fragments you're using. And having 2 of them and applying 6 stacks of slow off of 1, right?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I really think that they need to bring a lot of things down about how it works. Keep the idea intact, of kind of being able to punish people for overcommitting super hard and making what I would call foolish, mindless plays. But it needs to have a lot more risk to it. And an example of that is I don't think status effects like Stasis at the power of Stasis should be dealing damage. Like I don't think if you told me the Shuriken dealt no damage, I'd still use it. But it would have a lot more risk to it. I shouldn't be able to combo that with a sniper body shot from across the map. How many times
not at all.
I sniper body shot someone, I see them across the map, throw.
Just throw one out there. Yeah, it'll find him. Yeah.
No, but
It'll find its way home.
that shuriken, I mean, in the slow, it should stun you, like flashbang or concussion,
Concussion
like
even.
call it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it should stun you, not incapacitate you for 6 seconds, dude. It's just too much.
I mean, you bring up COD, and what's funny is when I throw a concussion at some people or someone in COD, when I flashbang them, it doesn't deal damage to them. I'm status affecting them. I'm using it as a status effect because I know what it does to them. In this game right now, it's you have again these shurikens, these warlock melees, whatever else is doing considerable amount of damage, 90 damage. That is nearly half of your player's health pool already. On top of those other effects, which are enough as is.
Sniper to the body.
Yeah,
It would be like in Pokemon if a Thunder Wave not only paralyzed every single time you used it, but it did 90 base damage every time too. You'd be like, damn, why would you use anything else? Just do that the whole time.
Wow, you just brought it
It
up.
does
man.
the status and it does the damage. Why would you go for
Why would you
anything
go
else?
for one or the other?
Shurikens are literally sand attack.
With 50 damage on top. Yeah.
So, but I'm excited about the light subs being buffed because I mean, you said it, and if you guys haven't heard it, you're gonna hear it here first. Movement runs Destiny, and it always has. Twilight Garrison, Bones of Ao, and D2 we have Stompies, we have the Behemoth Slide. What do all these things these top U subclasses? What are they doing against you? Meanwhile, again, there's Phoenix Dive on bottom tree, Dawn Blade, and you can use that if you want, right? But when they buff stuff, right? Think bottom tree Gunslinger with the heavy knife. Think top tree Dawn. Top tree Dawn's the standard. I think we would all agree.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, very fun.
With bottom, that's the difference that I see. So when they buff, it either needs to be movement based or something within the tree, like bottom tree Gunslinger with line them up, knock them down, the heavy knife. It's really, really good. But I fear when they talk about buffing them, I don't really want it to be too ability based because then we're gonna be back in the same exact spot we are right now with Stasis, right? I mean, what do you guys think?
I don't know. I think that the whole thing with Stasis is that it does. I kind of am like hardcore of the opinion that it's highly significant status effects that should probably be a little less effective, but on top of that, they're highly lethal. So when I go again, classic example right now is the shuriken, very super hot. When I am going to jump at someone or like planning to shuriken them and they put a shot in me and I shuriken them, you
You're
know,
winning.
compared to a 120 hand cannon, we are doing the same damage in a comparable amount of time, even though I'm like throwing a tracking thing at him that's also disabling their movement and debuffing their accuracy.
And
Whereas
magneting
if
the
mine
teammates.
did not deal damage, or if it dealt very minuscule damage, or again, there's other changes there, like if they said, you know, it was less tracking, was harder to pull off, all these other things, but you know, mainly like in my opinion, the damage thing, they would be up on me in damage. And then it's, I like to believe, a little bit more fair, a little bit more risk associated with that.
And Dustfield's kill now, which, I mean, why not?
Yeah.
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 My favorite thing is when I'm playing PvP with Cool Guy. I'm like, I don't know, some Revenant will throw literally everything in the kitchen sink, like in their toolkit at Cool Guy, like, you know, dodge, like Dustfield, shuriken. Cool Guy will be like, oh, don't worry, Fallout, don't worry. Like, what is it? Warlock has Phoenix dive, don't worry, there, it's all balanced.
Okay, so hear me out. For light subclasses, we could go the status effect route, and kind of like how weighted throwing knife got changed. I think top tree tether, a charged smoke grenade. So instead of a single tap for the normal poison, it's a big ass smoke cloud, but it does no damage. It's just purely to hinder vision. So then if you're invis, you might get a wall hack outline or something like that looking through it. I don't know.
That would be sick.
I'm down,
Right?
yeah. I'm down.
I do have faith in them to create like cool, unique abilities. We've seen like the, you know, say what you will about it. I don't play the class, but I still love it. It's certainly not flawless, but we've seen the glow up that top tree Dawnblade had. We've seen the amazing change and glow up that bottom tree Gunslinger had. I think they have the potential for some really unique stuff, and that was like a great look at that. And whether you love or hate Stasis, it's also some pretty unique abilities. So I do have the faith that they're going to make some cool, unique abilities out of whatever they do with the light subclasses. I just think that a lot of, yes, we need some love for those light subclasses that haven't seen love, but I really think we need a lot more in terms of finding the sweet spot for Stasis in relation to those. Yeah.
I said it before, but with abilities, right? Like, I'm okay with them buffing abilities if the ease of use doesn't get super high at the same time. The problem with Stasis that I have, on top of the things you mentioned where it has a huge effect and then it also does a ton of damage, is that they're super freaking easy to use. Like, all of the abilities are almost brain dead easy to use, which is frustrating, right? Like, I'm a huge fan of high lethality, you know, really difficult to use, or low lethality, pretty easy to use.
Like the heavy knife.
Yeah, like exactly like the heavy knife, which, by the way, your buddy Jingleheimer ran into him randomly the other day using that, and he killed me twice
with
double
axes?
bounce knives. Yeah, with like a double bounce
Oh,
knife.
man.
Standing
GG
around the
Jingle.
corner,
I see
Yeah.
you.
and the knife like ricochets around the corner and kills me. I was just like, what the fuck? Like, who uses that? No one uses that. And I was like, oh, I know this guy. He plays with Cool Guy. I was like, of course he's using this. So, yeah, but yeah, I mean, I think that's a great example of like, if you're very, very good, you can use that knife very, very well. But the thing is, with Shrikens, you don't have to be anything other than able to double tap a button. And it's like, are you looking at a wall? Is there an enemy within 40 meters? Like, congrats, you've basically frozen them. Or if you haven't frozen them, they can't do any of their movement and they can't aim their gun and they can't turn. So it's like, you know, I don't like that stuff. If they bring all the light subclasses up and they make these, you know, melees and grenades lethal again, like, make fusions one hit but remove all tracking from fusions, right? Or like, make it an exotic that does that for you. Like, it buffs your fusion damage but it removes all tracking or something like that. And then still keep the normal fusion that doesn't one hit you, but it has tons of tracking and make it easy, right? Like, I think that there's a balance, there's a sweet spot to be had there, but we just are nowhere close to hitting that. Because I think if they buff all the abilities, then that will be the key that gets primaries buffed a little bit more. And then we get into my perfect sandbox where we have high ease of use on primaries, like lethal, you know, kind of like where we were in D1 without the ridiculous outliers.
I think that's
Just have
fair.
the shurikens
Yeah,
move
relative
like the
balance-wise,
Lumina
that makes sense.
orb. Just, you know,
Yeah.
kinda
Slowest
send it.
shuriken ever. Yeah, just kind of put it out there.
As opposed to the shuriken.
You mentioned movement, cool guy. I love that Destiny has a lot of movement, and I love that. I think that there's a lot of movement options that have been, introduced and people love them. But I really think the movement is getting to some like ridiculous levels where the game can't even keep up with it anymore, and it ends up just looking frustrating and silly to look at in game.
Oh, like
Right,
Death Strain behemoth slides? Were they the
Yeah,
little
like
crab walking and,
I have someone sliding backwards and looking at me and shooting me at the same time, or like they're crab walking really quickly, or a stompy hunter is like rubber banding
Off
or
the ceiling.
melee, yeah, off of like not purposely. But I
Bouncing
mean like
under
their characters, like it's like they're like here, like, and you clearly see they're gonna jump and then they just skip here. Like the game like clearly isn't keeping up with this. So it's like, I don't know, one of the two things needs to happen. It's like, okay, the movement needs to, and also I will say the movement is also clearly not scaled to some of the maps, which are being brought back from D1, which further proves
Asylum.
that our
Just
movement,
do it.
but our movement isn't anywhere near like it was in D1, and that's why half these D1 maps play like crap.
Yeah, you're right, Drew.
Because-
It's like the
Yeah,
Halo
that
before
is
and after
true.
sprint, how they stretched out midship.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, well, the maps
Yeah.
are scaled to the new movement. The maps aren't scaled to the movement in this game, and the movement's so ridiculously fast that the maps now play like crap. And
Like
we all hate
Asylum's
them 'cause
pretty
it's-
funny whenever I get on it, dude. People are zooming, man.
It's just, I don't know. I think that I would like to see movement that is less.
Anomaly.
I'm going at Mach 10
Anomaly,
and
I gotcha.
base. Yeah, I know what you meant. I want to see. I would love to see movement that's less like, haha, I'm flying at Mach 10, not being punished for my positioning, and like the game can't keep up. And I'd like to see just more evasive, like cool evasive maneuvers that give you agency over like, again, your evasiveness in an engagement. I like, I don't know, something like that would be. I think Bakris is still a little too ridiculous, hard to track and like long distance, but that's kind of it. Maybe like something like the Halo 5 like thruster pack.
Okay, I'll add, I can track Bakris a lot easier than bottom tree striker melee. When they melee somebody, they're gone. They are teleporting.
Oh, the
It's
knockout
like
melee.
having Bakris every melee.
That was another sub that got a good update, man. The frontal assault bottom tree striker.
Mm-hmm.
They can do it. I have confidence.
I will say that like that is something a lot of people conflate. They conflate movement spam with like a
Skill.
movement skill gap, right? And it's not entirely the same thing. I personally think that if you take away some of the effects that sometimes dodging can do on a hunter, like the hunter dodge, I think is a good thing. And the warlock air dash, I think is really strong, super strong, especially with how it can carry momentum and stuff. But it's still pretty much a good thing, right? Twilight Garrison and D1 Titan is pretty much a good thing. That's about the extent of where I feel like a movement ability, especially all those have cooldowns, right? All those have limits on what you can use them for. Like that's about the extent of where I feel like it is. Like what we've got right now are Titans spamming slide, Hunters spamming stompies. Like we've got a lot of spam.
First battle, flying at
Yeah.
Mach 10.
Yeah, and then I have people telling me like, oh, well, don't nerf that because you're crushing skill gap. And it's like, well, what you're doing isn't really skill gap. You're just spamming a button a bunch of times. And we need to not conflate those things.
And to add on to that, like there is a difference between like, okay, there's some skill in that, but is there not? I think there's a problem when the movement speed becomes like, I'm moving so fast that I'm no longer being punished for bad positioning, and I'm able to get like way out of a bad scenario way too quickly. The map design is being invalidated because cover means so much less, or the space between objects and positioning of them means so much less because, oh well, I can just move as fast as I pretty much want. And I think that actually deters the skill gap in a lot of ways. And I feel like as a community, we're not like, a lot of people, like you said, are not open into talking about that because some people might believe it's like just a direct, oh, you're nerfing the skill gap type of a thing.
Yeah.
But I think that evasive movement, like air dodges and stuff like that, to give you like this cool dynamic where you have agency to move in an erratic way, almost mid gunfight, erratic but predictable way mid gunfight, that makes things more interesting and opens up playmaking ability, is different than I want to zoom in Mach 10. I think that's different.
Hey,
Like
during the Go Fast update, I called all this out. It broke some maps. Like Dead Cliffs was unplayable to me when Titan skating was the thing because they could get the power position and literally the power ammo just because they had it and you didn't.
That
Yep.
I mean, people on the old consoles, man, like it's so tough on a console to go against a high jump stompy hunter, dude. Like you're
It is.
and like you're like, oh, you know, skill gap. I'm like, is it? You know,
Look, I can tell you as a hunter, I promise you, it's not hard to change direction in the air with stompies on. You push direction and you jump. And you're pretty
So-
much good. And on console, if you're over someone's head and you have a shotgun out, like that's pretty much a win, right? Like they are not, unless they're the best player, they're not going to be able to track you over their head. Like they're going to do that awkward thing where they like look straight up and then they like, slowly turn around and they like look down to try to track you.
You can
Like,
always tell a
Worst of
controller
all,
player.
They have shatter dive too, so if someone like reads their trajectory and tries
Yeah,
to
oh,
shoot 'em,
God.
they shatter dive back down. You can't even make it back to them before they can jump again.
Pretty brutal.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I just think that it's something maybe worth exploring at some point because the game can't keep up with it. Some of the maps play like crap because of it. Is there an insane intensive skill gap with it? Well, there's skill to it. Is it insane and intensive? Arguable. So,
And
don't
I
know.
feel
really
what
strong
you're
case there, Drew.
saying. You're not saying like
they're clear outliers.
kill movement potential. Like no, it's like keep it there, but let's keep it within reason and
Yep.
continue to develop movement potential in PvP, like in a way that would
Evasive.
reward skill and not just kind of like destroy the game.
And isn't a backbreaker for the developers. I mean, you could go the other route, right? You could stretch out all the maps. You could speed up
Does that-
TTK.
You even get like things like shotguns become less of a like I like to believe this would enforce people using primaries more because when you can't just zoom out and fly out and stompy jump bounce your head off a ceiling a billion times out at someone and shotgun them and then just in case you fucked up, here's your dust field grenade or shurikens to cover you. I feel like if all of that gets toned down, my point, or I guess where I'm trying to go with this argument is that there's silliness at all ends of the spectrum for me right now, in my personal opinion. There's a lot of silliness everywhere, and I'd like to see it just all toned down to a reasonable level.
I think that's totally fair. Very, very reasonable.
Good
And
tangent,
fair.
Drew.
Good tangent.
Yeah.
We're gonna jump ahead. One of the things they outlined in the article was the complete overhaul of Trials. I'll read a few snippets here for y'all to think about. Improve the overall health of the Trials matchmaking pool, both by incentivizing a wider audience to engage and better defining separation of skill tiers. Rebuild the Trials reward structure so that it encourages more players to stick to their active cards longer. Our current structure encourages a lot of recycling cards after a single loss, meaning that the first games of your Trials card has a high chance of being incredibly challenging. We want to build a reward structure that continually pushes higher skill players to want to progress deeper into their card even after a loss, making 3 to 5 wins a more achievable goal for players. And investigate opportunities for solo players to play in Trials regularly. We believe this will not only make the matchmaking pools healthier, but also will encourage more players to see what Trials is all about and hopefully form social connections with other PvP-loving Guardians. That's kind of a lot of info. It's kind of a complete barrage of information coming right at you. I'm liking a lot of what I'm reading. I don't know how they're going to incorporate the solo play Trials. I don't know what's going to happen there. It's hard for me to talk on that topic because I need to look at where like I am as a streamer. Like I'm sure that any one of us could probably hop into a Discord, onto Twitter, and if we wanted to, we could probably build a fire team if we wanted to play Trials probably really quickly. We don't know. I mean, like we're not solo gamers. You know what I mean? So they are out there. Like I just want to make sure that if people are getting into Trials alone, that they're having like a good time. Do you know what I mean? I've always said that like that raid matchmaking would probably be a nightmare. I feel like if raid matchmaking were a thing, then like a lot of people might be turned off of raiding forever. Just a personal thought. I'm interested in seeing what Bungie will do with trials for people who want to play solo.
Well,
But
my argument to the raid matchmaking thing is how many of the people that would be turned off raiding forever are not raiding right now anyways, though, right?
I guess that's a fair point.
Then it's kind of a wash, right? The only
True.
real risk you run is that someone who would have raided otherwise uses raid matchmaking and has such a bad experience that they then do not end up raiding again. And I think that the risk of that is relatively low, because if they would have raided otherwise and they had a bad experience matchmaking, I think that they would go find a fire team and do it that way, right? That's at least the way I have looked at the matchmaking for raids thing. For trials, I'm a bit more concerned, only because, like, you know, obviously I would love to see them, number one, just do away with card-based matchmaking, just like bring back, you know, the bounty rewards and bring back post-game drops and just like kind of open it up and then just like matchmake it, right? Like you can just matchmake like any other playlist, right? You know, it just matches you versus people, blah, 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 blah. And if the post-game rewards and if the participation rewards were good enough, I think you could get a nice little influx of players. My concern is that they stick with the card-based system where things are very reliant on winning for everyone, which is super not fun for people who aren't very good. And my concern is like, well, okay, if I'm a solo player, how is my experience in freelance comp right now? My experience in freelance comp is I go in and I get the two shittiest players on my team without fail, and I have to carry them. I know they're trying, and I don't judge them because they didn't choose to get matched with me, right? But without fail, if I don't go 2.0 or better in freelance comp, we lose 100% of the time. Like, that's not super fun for someone to go into trials and constantly get stuck either being carried or being the one carrying as a solo player. So my concern is like, how do you make that not happen for solos? Because either good players are not going to want to do it solo because they're going to be carrying, which sucks in trials with elimination. Bad players are basically going to be going in just as dead weight, which isn't super fun. And it's like, that's with the current card-based matchmaking system, I'm not sure, and the current win reward structure, I'm not sure that there is an easy answer to that.
Do you think there's a possibility, and I think this is low when I'm asking it, that they would do a 1v1 elimination? Because that is solo matchmaking.
No.
I don't think they would. I
don't
think
think
the
they
community
would.
would be a little too heartbroken when they realize they're not as good as they think.
Yeah, I think that's a dangerous game to play. Like,
The only thing I'm really scratching my head on is the better defining separation of skill tiers. I don't know what they mean by that, but like when I think about things like this, and it's just how I think about things in general, I'm like, okay, where are we trying to go? Where are we now? Where we come from? So I think back, like, was Trials of the Nine that bad? I mean, I'm just talking about like the overall structure, because that was not card-based matchmaking, and of course it was countdown. Then you go back in D1 with the boons. I'm like, okay, can they come up with a system? Because like honestly now, I'm to a point to where if you win 7 games, you get like the lowest tier to go flawless, or to the lighthouse, not flawless. You know what I mean? Like I'm almost to a point to where, and like I think that could be on the table. Like I think like honestly, like cards could come to be like what we have now. Maybe you're allowed 3 losses, maybe you're allowed 5, and like completing said card gets you better rewards, but like the base to get in is you have to win 7 games. Like I think that's a real possibility, dude.
I mean, my dream is that they completely do away with card-based matchmaking. It's just connection-based. That's it. They get rid of this like card idea. They just give everyone the boons like they did before, right? They're just static boons on the thing. There are 3 chests at the lighthouse. If you get 7 wins on a card, doesn't matter how many losses you have, you know, as long as your card's not flawed. If you get 7 wins, you get the first chest. That way, you know, people can go to the lighthouse just by winning, you know, what it would actually account to, what, like 5 games or whatever with all the boons that you get. You win 5 games with less than 2 losses, you get your first chest. Then there's a flawless chest that's like you actually got there flawless, right? And then the third chest would be, once you've gone flawless, you can pick up a card that says you will only match other players who have gone flawless this weekend. Matchmaking will take longer. You get the third chest. There's a fucking ornament set locked behind it. There's a sick emblem that literally says like my EPing is huge on it, right? And like that's what you do, and you make it voluntary, because that will separate the skill gaps a little bit, right? Like, people will voluntarily make things more challenging for themselves if there's some sick bragging rights and they get to, rub it in other people's faces. And as long as that's just an aesthetic option, I don't think that's necessarily the worst thing ever. But I'm super concerned that better defining separation of skill tiers means skill-based matchmaking, or like forced post-flawless, only playing other 7-win teams. And I'm like real concerned about the possibilities of that in trials, because then you go from it being not at all, acceptable to low skill players to being, if you are good enough to go flawless, you pretty much hate your life when you're doing trial.
I would also like post game rewards. Like that would
Yeah,
help
that
out
too.
tremendously.
That would be
tremendously.
great.
Just
Like
to
yeah.
play,
frozen orbit of trials.
yeah, just to play the game mode. Like, oh, I got some trials arms after we lost. Cool, right?
They did that in D1, right? Like, they had silver tier armor that dropped from post game that was just like a plain trial set, and then they had flawless rewards, and then they had flawless ornaments. Like, doesn't it kind of just make sense to just go back to the way it already was when it was its most popular?
My 56 stat boots one way or another, Merc. All right. Which,
Yeah,
by the way, they need to fix the stat rolls on the armor and trials. Like,
60 plus only.
I'll keep this short.
Definitely.
To a sentence.
Sure.
Loot structure should be the more intensive, the more deterministic. The less intensive, give them something for free, make it random.
so
agree.
like Adept.
I like that.
Like, that's the biggest thing. Adept. What is the criteria for Adept? Because recovs run off of Adept. Everything runs off of Adept and going flawless. Like, what should be the new norm for that? That's the real question.
I don't know what the answer would be comfortably.
Yeah, it's
off
hard.
the top
It's
of my
hard.
head.
Because
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I mean, when we played, dude, there was DOS, there was cheaters. It was bad.
Oh, I cannot wait for DDoS protection. That's a tangent I'll go on to.
Yeah.
They aren't
Oh
prepared.
God, for that.
So, like,
I'm going right back to console.
the big
Me
thing
too.
is the hammer and all the the Adept Messenger when it comes out. Like, that's the true
Ooh.
test. Like, what are they gonna do to get that into more players' hands? Because it should be more accessible. I mean, come on, dude. Like, we all play the same game here. I mean,
It's in
really.
a state, like, I repeat, where cheaters don't even go flawless. Like,
Should
It's
adept
a, it's.
weapons be more or be more accessible? though?
I'm sort of like divided.
I think
I
so.
just want to live in a world. I want to live in a world where more people are encouraged to play trials, because like right now, if trials were still on the table, I had like a conversation with my Twitch chat about it, and because I was like, you're here with me in Twitch chat, like clearly you have some familiarity with PvP because I played a bunch, but like how many people in my chat right now have never played flawless, and like just lit up with a bunch of people, and I was like, well, do you do that by choice? And they're like, yeah. Like, they just don't, like, there's a shockingly high number of people right now who just can't even think of a reason to step one foot in. And like, I still want people who go flawless to get that that special, that little extra notch of extra reward to be like, yeah, you went flawless, you went all the way, here's that reward to, it should be hard to go flawless, I think, but it should still be a rewarding experience overall. It should be more accessible at the lower levels, you know what I mean? It should be more encouraging, because like, think about Iron Banner. People have plenty of reason to, well, sometimes plenty of reason to play Iron Banner, you know what I mean? There's no one, I think the number of people who are, quote, afraid to play Iron Banner, it's probably much less than Trials, because like, you can play Iron Banner, win some, lose some, and you can still walk away with good rewards, good loot, good gear. It's still a rewarding experience. But if you go into Trials, it's like, it's kind of almost like all or nothing, unless it's a really generous weekend where,
is all
it's
or
like,
nothing.
all like, yeah, like,
Everything's about wins.
I just like, and again, I still want it to be reward people for going flawless, still make going flawless
Agreed.
challenging. It should still be challenging to go flawless. But like at the entry level, make it more appealing for Johnny Dayjob, because like, it's still a thing that more people should be getting into. You can have rewards at the lower level without them being like, without people feeling like, oh, they're just giving away, like top tier loot for free. I feel like you can achieve that balance.
Yeah, I sometimes for fun I like to and just because I've actually met some pretty cool people when I have done it. trying to do some like LFG trials. I'm not trying to carry or anything. I just want to go game with a group because I don't have people online, and I can be a good player for a team hopefully. And man, does that put in perspective like some of the like wow, it's a
The
struggle.
most defeatist
for some-
attitude
Yeah,
you
sure.
have ever seen.
Like I
God love
commend
'em.
some of these guys. They just want to play, just want to get some of their wins, and I'm like out there like trying my absolute hardest because a lot of them are really cool. And it's just like it really puts in perspective, like for the average player, or I don't want to say the average player, I want to say the less experienced players compared to the majority of the
the less
population in trials
diehard.
now that has become
Yeah.
like a lot of like super experienced players. It's tough. It's tough, and I do think it needs to be a little bit more rewarding on the lower end. I don't know what this looks like. I feel like there's a billion potential solutions for what this might be. I'm excited to see what Bungie does. For me personally, I really like Trials of the Nine, the structure and the game modes. Let's separate that from the sandbox at the time. I was a fan of Trials of the Nine having cosmetic rewards for flawless. I think that was cool. I personally, cool guy, you mentioned the Adept Rewards. They should be more accessible to me. When the Adept Rewards came out, a lot of people like the big difference is the mods and like the +3 on every stat. A lot of people are saying there's not enough of a difference. So I don't know. I like to think that that's like that small little extra bit that you get for going flawless. I mean, at the end of the day, I think that a igneous hammer with rapid hit and rampage and great stats, adept or not, is a desirable weapon. So
Yeah.
Agreed.
And, people play Iron Banner with connection-based matchmaking, even though they're terrible players, because you get good rewards from the bounties, which is like step one, and because it has post-game drops, right? Like, it's not that difficult of a thing to like convince people to play.
Sure.
You basically say like, hey, please participate, and if you participate long enough, you're gonna get some good stuff.
Yep.
Right? You might not
Got a
get
lot of high stat gear.
yeah, you might not get exactly what you want, but you're gonna get some stuff. Like imagine if next weekend Trials came back and they said Messenger and the class item are post-game drops. Do you think that people
That would
wouldn't just flood into Trials?
People would
immediately, right? Like
Yeah.
it's this stuff.
Oh yeah.
I don't understand how they're making it so incredibly difficult to like do this stuff. Like you've got another in-game game mode sitting in the game that is filled with casual players, despite the fact that they're
Right.
affected by the matchmaking. Like the matchmaking is actively tossing them to the wolves, and light level is enabled, right? Like that should be the worst case scenario for a casual player, and yet they flock to Iron Banner more than they play even normal control. So
The amount of casuals I gave power ammo, you don't even know. I made some people's weeks.
on
Good-
the
good
on
on
the
you,
flip side,
Cammy.
it's worth talking about. So I would love for there to be post-match drops, messenger, class item, like you said, but
Mhm.
the extreme end of that, there will be teams that go in there that jump off every round, and they're giving free wins.
victimless
Now-
crimes. Victimless crimes.
Yeah, so
so.
you got people set up macros to literally walk forward or walk left to jump off for the week, and they just kind of come back in 4 hours.
I mean, shocker that the system we came up with in 2 minutes on a podcast is not perfect, but like, I'm sure they could figure out a system that would.
Yeah.
I would much rather people set up macros to kill themselves for 100 games in a weekend than I would them pay for a recovery or pay for cheats and then ruin the game for other people, right? Like, yeah, you go in there and
He's
you're
onto
like,
something.
yeah,
He's onto something, boys.
like, oh no, I got a free win. Like I got a second boon this card. Like nobody's gonna be upset about that. And it's like, yeah, sure, they'll get rewards. Well, they'll never get the flawless stuff, whatever the ornament or the emblem or whatever it is like that. Like they won't get that stuff. Like if you want to go kill yourself in a full team in trials, like be my guest, you're gonna make someone else's day. Like someone else matches you on game subject has never been flawless before, and they get it because you jumped off the map and killed yourself. They're still gonna be fucking stoked about it. That's gonna be the happiest they've ever been.
Well, as is tradition, we have about 7 minutes left in the show. We are just getting to community questions. God love all of you who listen to this freaking show, man.
You're the
So
best.
we really appreciate you. So if you have any kind of thoughts or feelings, or you feel a certain way about the overhaul of Trials, or anything we've talked about the show so far, please let us know on Twitter. I'm sure you know how to find us, but we'll let you know later. We are going to really quickly go through just a few of the community questions that you hit us with every week on Twitter. We appreciate you. We'll try to keep the answers short in the interest of time. Maybe in the future we'll do another question-heavy episode. Here we go. James Carey wants to know, what are the 3 bottom most subclasses in PvP right now?
Tether, Nova Bomb.
Which Nova Bomb, top or bottom?
Either.
You don't see Devour at all. I at least see.
Yeah, very rarely.
Either one.
Its love is great.
I would put Blade Barrage down there fairly far.
Burning Maul. I mean, God, I don't remember the last time I saw Burning Maul in PvP.
That's
I
a
saw one
I think it's
today.
better than
fun.
Tether.
It's a fun class, but it's not. Yeah, it's not high up.
Omni Oculus really brought out bottom Tether, but I would say bottom Dawn, bottom Void, Void Walker, and the last one's honestly top Striker.
Yeah.
Because the only time I see top Striker is Heart of Most Light. The only time.
This
Yeah,
is
I
bad.
don't
We're
know.
struggling.
Yeah.
We're struggling to figure out which light subclasses are the shittiest because there's so
Yeah, 'cause
many.
there's so many that are bad.
Yeah.
Difficult to pick. Just
Yeah.
read it.
Is it light? No, it's down
yeah,
there.
poor Middle Sentinel too. It used to be so good.
Oh, that used to be my favorite for a very short period of time. Oh well. Here's a question from Gerbil Boss. He actually has a couple of questions, but I'm picking the one that I found most interesting. Is Chaos Reach busted?
In trials, in general, debatable.
I've never agreed with the super energy staying on death.
Yeah, that is a huge, huge
Never agreed with
pain.
that.
Especially when they're not
I agree with
canceling, you're
you.
killing them.
I agree with you on that. I should say.
Yeah.
What?
He's agreeing with you.
That,
Yeah.
that you don't like that, rather than I agree with this super staying on death. Like, I
Yeah,
agree with you.
he's trying to clarify that people don't
Really
roast him on
agree.
Twitter later. Drew confirmed likes that super energy can be held on to.
No, I agree with
Yeah.
cool guy.
The worst part is when like they don't even manually cancel it. Like they just die in the game. It's like, oh, don't worry about that, buddy.
Well,
We
yeah,
got
it's
you.
like
We'll
you
save that
make a
energy
great
for you.
play, a great snipe. It's like round 3 of trial. It's like, well, he's literally gonna run into a wall the next round and get it back, so you have to do it again.
Yeah.
And he's just gonna cancel it. He's gonna be the same spot after you domed him. Like, it's
It's
broken.
annoying.
Bungie, please fix.
I think it needs to be looked at for sure.
Dude, on that note, I already got the change to bottom tree Void Walker. While Devour is active, kills remove some super energy from them. Do it.
Oh,
That's so
that's an
evil.
interesting idea. Like you're devouring
Yeah,
like their
super-
light.
their
What-
light.
they
Only
devour
against
their light.
behemoths and Chaos Reach users.
That's a good idea. Here's one from the Omega. Now that sunsetting is sunset, what is a non-meta loadout that you guys are excited to dust off and run with?
Dead Man's Tail exists. You're not taking that out of my hands.
What was the question?
Now that sunsetting is gone, what is a non-meta loadout that you guys are excited to use, or that you'll be able to use? I guess because it won't be put on the chopping block.
I'm pulling up Dim right now. I'll have your answer.
Sure.
I went back to Last Word Snipe. I don't know if that's anti-meta or not, but
Just means you play controller, huh?
got me.
You've been
Not-
using that
not
that frozen orbit there, Drew?
Mouse and
yeah.
keys.
I've been
I
trying
love
to get a good one. I have one with quick draw, but I think it also has ambitious assassin on it. And I'm like, at least it is
I
quick
got a
draw.
pretty good one that like I'm happy with. It's not my most ideal one, but for the frequency of those drops and that terrible perk pool, I'm okay with it.
Fair.
Okay, I have one for you. Since these are not getting sunset, go into the Last Wish. Go for a Tekiju Enforced Fusion Rifle. It can get Kill Clip and Rampage. Want to run some Reloader Gloves? You can go on some tears with that. That'll remind you of Arental.
Atta boy, I like that answer.
It's kind of weird that Glacioclasm. It's like the best legendary right now, and
Yeah, it's a seasonal event. That's the most MMO thing.
I was grinding so much for Glacier Chasms. I got some like 35 rolls and did not get even anywhere close to the roll I wanted.
I'm there too, Merc.
So I'm like using a busted ass one right now because it's like the best of the shit.
It's now like Scrooge for the rest of the year.
Exactly. It's just like laughing me in the face every time I look at it, and I look at I think it's like Slideways auto-loading holster or something. And I'm like, ugh.
Here's a question from Was That? Is it possible, and what would be necessary for non-high impact fusion rifles to become relevant in PvP?
Oh wow, what a fitting question.
No, unless they scale the damage values back up to how they were in D1, where more stuff can kill in 4 bolts, not just high impacts, or easily kill in 5 bolts. As long as you require 6 bolts or like, on the cusp of 5 bolts for fusions, most people aren't going to use them because the spread is just too much for most people to, to deal with. Coriolis will never, because that horizontal spread, there's no way to constrain it, right? So you're always capped at how far away you can kill someone. Whereas like a fusion that's vertical, you can learn to kind of stick those bolts into the same spot. You can't like flick Coriolis in.
Right.
That we know of. I mean, I'm
Unless
kind of
you have one
motivated
for
to go get
all.
one of those.
That would be interesting if they made it that like if you spin while you fire it, like the cone would tighten or something.
I thought, maybe I thought it fires like left to right or something, but it doesn't. It fires like into out. So you can't like, unless you like spin your cursor in a circle like really quick and like.
Yeah,
trap
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, there's usually a lot of thought put into these weapons when Bungie makes them. So it wouldn't surprise me if it's something like that we're just missing at face value.
So like when they buffed them, they said it's 16% on 100 range and like 6% on 0 range. The issue with that, like, yeah, we buffed it, but guess what inherently has the highest range out of all fusion rifles? Oh, the high impact ones. Okay.
Now precisions are okay. Like I'm not gonna, if you're good with fusions, precisions are okay.
It's like whatever they have done and they continue to do always puts the high impacts even further on top. Like when before this buff, they capped the range, they all hit max damage at 17.5 meters. All of them. It didn't matter. So you're going to take the one that kills in 4 bolts. You're going to take the one that has better, like, there's no other real, like, let me pull this up real quick. There's no other class that has such a wide gap within damage between a 4 and a 5 bullet kill. Hold on. Yeah, so they're 48. The next one's 39. And remember, there's 7 projectiles, right? So we're talking.
Yeah, that's a big gap.
Yeah, there's nothing else like it. So like they either need to bring down high impacts to do like 44 per bolt, or make, jump everything up like 7 damage. That's what they need to do to like fully balance these things. One or the other.
Probably, yeah.
I would slow down like the charge rate of high impacts, and I would start shifting stuff like up, right? So like slow down the charge rate of high impacts, move them up. Slow down the charge rate of precisions, move their damage up as well. Like move everything up so that like rapid fires, then I would go the other way. I would increase their charge rate. I would make their charge rate faster, right? Because I guess at rapid fires you kind of have to have them 6 bolt kills. Like you can't have a rapid fire with a 5 bolt kill because then it invalidates anything else that's a 5 bolt kill. But I think that there's room to work within that if you start spreading stuff out. But with high impacts the way they are, why would you ever use anything other than a high impact? Like longest kill distance, most damage per bolt, like.
And all the best perks, you're under pressure, high impact reserves, like all of it is just strengthening that frame.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say my brother uses fusions like crazy, and I think he's a good player. He uses Icarus precision frame with backup plan and finds a lot of success flying at people like you would have Felwinters.
I too like to live dangerously.
You have a brother?
I do.
Ty, dude, you never met Ty?
Goated on the sticks.
He's goated on the
Goated, bro. Didn't know. Have to play with him, man.
He got a lot of things banned in early D1 sweats, like a lot of things.
I like him already. Well, I think we actually handled a fair amount of questions in a relatively reasonable amount of time. Yeah. That's how you do it, DCP, all right? None of this, 2-hour rambling nonsense, all right? Get organized.
Yeah, we're 3 minutes behind, right?
All right,
Only-
hold on.
only
I
3.
can drag this out longer. Where is my Redrix ornament for the messenger? Come on, Bungie.
Come
Let me
on,
apply
bingo.
it.
Don't make me go on this one, Cam. You're triggering the sleeper phrases. You're gonna get me into a tangent.
I got another one.
Yeah, ended.
You
Okay.
got one of Destiny too. Wait, hand cannons can 3-tap?
I don't want to go on the same.
We're gonna go around the table and let you know where you can find each one of us when we are not on this podcast. Cammy, where can the people at home find you?
On Ship 1 on Phantasy Star Online, but mostly twitter.com/CammyCakesYT, youtube.com/CammyCakesGaming, and twitch.tv/CammyCakes. Thank you, everyone.
Cool guy, where can the people find you?
Twitter and YouTube, Cool Guy Games. That's where you can find me.
Nice. Drew, how about you?
Twitch.tv/Drewskys, mainly, also occasionally on twitter.com/Drewskys channel and youtube.com/Drewskys channel.
Be sure to tweet at Drew if you think he would look good, bald or not. Merc, where can the people at home find you?
Twitter is 904 on the Destiny Massive Breakdowns podcast, and I actually think I'm going to be on the Destiny Community podcast this week as well. So might be able to see it.
Very nice. Check him out there. And I am Fallout. You can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/FalloutPlays, twitter.com/FalloutPlays, twitch.tv/FalloutPlays, onlyfans.com. No, we're not doing that. Thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate all of you. Be safe. Have fun out there. And we will catch you next time. Later.
Peace.
Take care.
Ended.
Okay, I've ended the audio, but we are still live on Twitch, waiting for like 10 people to tell me in the chat, you guys are still
Wait,
live.
we're live?
we're live. So who do we got online right now who we could host? Anybody?
Maze, CammyCakes, Mikowski,
Patty, Dado.
Dado doesn't need our host.
He doesn't need the help.
Mikowski is just returning, right?
Oh, Mikowski, yeah, he came
True,
back
yeah,
from,
yeah.
he was in like a car
Alright.
situation,
Walmart.
yeah. Yeah,
It's
who did we do more recently?
There's
And-
KDLH. There's a ton.
I'm gonna vote Mikowski.
My
I'm
vote's
cool with that.
Mikowski.
Alright, let's do
Yep.
it.
Thanks, chat. You guys are awesome.
We appreciate y'all. Please go spread the love and spend a little time with old man Mikowski. He's a good dude. You'll enjoy him. Thanks very much for listening. Have a great night. Catch you later.